Greetings, philosophers. Welcome to the Philosophy Zone, where we dive into the big ideas that shape how we think, live, and connect with each other. Today we're exploring the work of Jürgen Habermas, a German philosopher whose ideas about communication and democracy offer a fascinating lens on how we might build fairer societies. Now, don't worry if philosophy sounds like a heavy lift. We're going to unpack this in a way that's clear, engaging, and relevant to everyday life, while staying true to the depth and nuance of Habermas's thought. Think of this as a conversation about how we talk to each other, make decisions together, and create laws that actually reflect what people care about. Let's start with a question. Have you ever felt like the world is moving too fast with big systems, corporations, governments, bureaucracies, calling the shots while ordinary people's voices get drowned out? That's exactly the kind of problem Habermas spent his career tackling. Born in 1929, he came of age in post-war Germany, a time when the world was grappling with the horrors of totalitarianism and the question of how societies could rebuild trust and fairness. His ideas grew out of a group of thinkers called the Frankfurt School, who were trying to figure out what went wrong with modernity, why progress, science, and reason sometimes led to domination rather than freedom. The Frankfurt School, folks like Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno, argued that modern society had become obsessed with what they called instrumental rationality. That's a fancy term for a kind of thinking that's all about efficiency, how to get things done, make money, or control systems without asking whether those things are good or fair. Think of it like a factory mindset. Everything's about output, not about whether the workers are happy or the products are ethical. Their big book, Dialectic of Enlightenment, said, this mindset was turning people into cogs in a machine, stripping away our ability to think critically or imagine better ways of living. It's a grim picture, right? Like a sci-fi dystopia where the system runs everything and human connection gets lost. Habermas, though, wasn't satisfied with that gloom and doom story. As a young scholar working with Horkheimer and Adorno, he soaked up their ideas but thought they were missing something. He didn't believe rationality itself was the problem, just the way it was being used. So he started carving out his own path, asking, what if we could use reason not to control people, but to bring them together? That's where his big idea, communicative action, comes in. It's a mouthful, I know, but stick with me. It's actually pretty intuitive. Imagine you're at a family dinner and everyone's trying to decide where to go on vacation. One person wants the beach, another wants the mountains, and your uncle's just shouting about staying home to save money. If everyone's just pushing their own agenda, you'll never agree. You're stuck in what Habermas calls strategic action, where people are more focused on winning than understanding each other. But now imagine a different kind of conversation, where everyone listens, shares their reasons, and tries to find a plan that makes sense to the whole group. That's communicative action, people talking, not to manipulate or dominate, but to reach a shared understanding. It's about finding common ground through honest, open dialogue. This idea is at the heart of Habermas's magnum opus, The Theory of Communicative Action, which he published in 1981. He says that human societies depend on this kind of communication to function, not just for vacation plans, but for everything from politics to law. When we talk to each other with respect, aiming for mutual understanding, we're tapping into what he calls communicative rationality. It's not about being the loudest or having the most power. It's about making arguments that hold up under scrutiny, that are true, fair, and sincere. Now, here's where it gets really interesting for our world today. Habermas talks about two parts of society: the life world and the system. The life world is the everyday stuff, your culture, your values, the conversations you have with friends or family. It's the messy human part of life where we share stories, build trust, and figure out what matters to us. The system, on the other hand, is the big organized stuff. Think markets, governments, corporations. These run on money and power, and they're great at getting things done, like building roads or delivering packages. But Habermas warns that the system can start to take over the life world, what he calls the colonization of the life world. Sound familiar? Think about how corporate ads or political spin can drown out real conversations, or how bureaucracy can make you feel like a number instead of a person. For example, let's say your community wants to save a local park from being turned into a shopping mall. In the life world, you'd have town hall meetings, share stories about what the park means to you, and try to come up with a solution everyone can live with. But the system, say, a big developer or a city council focused on budgets, might steamroll those discussions with money or legal power. Habermas says this is where things go wrong, when the system's logic of efficiency overrides the life world's logic of understanding. So where does law fit into all this? For Habermas, law is like a bridge between the life world and the system. It takes the agreements we reach through open, fair conversations, our communicative action, and turns them into rules that the system can enforce. But here's the key. For those laws to be legitimate, they have to come from real, inclusive dialogue, not just top-down decrees. This is why Habermas is so obsessed with democracy. He believes laws are only fair if they reflect the will of people who've had a chance to argue, debate, and agree in a process that's as open and equal as possible. This brings us to one of his coolest ideas, the ideal speech situation. Picture a perfect conversation where everyone gets a say, no one's bullied or ignored, and the best argument wins. Not because someone's louder or richer, but because it makes the most sense. Of course, this is an ideal. It doesn't exist in the real world, where power, money, or prejudice often distort things. But Habermas says we should aim for it. It's like a North Star for designing better institutions, whether it's a courtroom, a parliament, or even a community meeting. The closer we get to that ideal, the fairer our laws and decisions will be. Let's pause for a second to think about what this means for us today. In a world of social media echo chambers, political polarization, and fake news, Habermas's ideas feel more relevant than ever. How often do we see real dialogue? People listening to each other, not just shouting their opinions. His work challenges us to create spaces where everyone's voice counts, where we're not just trying to win, but to understand. Imagine if our political debates or online forums were designed to encourage that kind of conversation. It's a tall order, but it's a hopeful vision now. Not everyone buys into Habermas's ideas. Some critics, like the philosopher Nancy Fraser, point out that real-world conversations are never free from power dynamics, class, race, gender, you name it. They argue his ideal speech situation is a bit too idealistic, ignoring how hard it is for marginalized voices to be heard. Others, like fans of more traditional legal theories, say his focus on process, on how we talk, doesn't give enough weight to universal moral principles, like those you'd find in natural law or even in thinkers like Ronald Dworkin. These are fair points, and Habermas doesn't claim to have all the answers, but he'd argue that his framework gives us a way to keep improving, to keep striving for fairness by refining how we communicate. Let's bring this back to law because that's where Habermas's ideas really shine. In his book, Between Facts and Norms, published in 1992, he lays out a vision of the law that's grounded in this communicative approach. He says laws aren't just about keeping order or enforcing rules. They're about capturing the agreements we reach as a community. For a law to be legitimate, it has to come from a process where everyone affected by it has a chance to weigh in. That's why he's so big on deliberative democracy, where citizens don't just vote, but actually debate and shape the laws that govern them. Think about something like environmental regulations. In Habermas's world, those rules wouldn't just come from experts or politicians in a backroom. They'd come from a process where scientists, activists, businesses, and regular people, like farmers or factory workers, get to argue their case. The resulting law would reflect a balance of perspectives, not just the loudest or most powerful ones. It's a radical idea because it demands that we rethink how power works in our societies. As we wrap up, let's step back and ask, why does this matter? Habermas's philosophy isn't just about abstract ideas. It's about how we live together in a time when trust in institutions is shaky, when people feel disconnected from the decisions that affect them. His work offers a roadmap. It's not about perfect solutions, but about creating processes that are fair, inclusive, and rational. It's about believing that through better conversations, we can build better societies. That's all for today's Philosophy Zone. If this got you thinking, let us know in the comments. What's one place in your life where better communication could make a difference? Maybe it's your workplace, your community, or even online. And if you want to dive deeper into Habermas or other big thinkers, hit that subscribe button and join us next time as we explore another corner of the philosophical universe. Thanks for listening, and keep questioning.